Hi there, I'm Greg Sanders, Vice President of Editorial with the WTWH Media Food, Retail, and Hospitality Group, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Decoding 2024 Trends in Fast Casual in QSR. So in today's program, just to put it quite simply, our guests are going to discuss what strategies are proving to move the needle for fast casual and quick service leaders thus far in 2024, and really what a lineup of guests we do have today, including Heather Lee Neary, President and CEO of Taco John's, Dave Harris, Chief Information Officer at Shake Shack, and Dok Kwon, President and COO of CupBop, and of course, let's not forget our moderator, Jennifer Kern, Chief Marketing Officer at Q. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. First, a recording of this session will be linked at qsrmagazine.com, and you can also use today's login link for on-demand viewing. Second, slides and a downloadable report are available for download using the resources widget on the webinar console, so we do encourage you to check those out. And finally, please feel free to submit a question for the panel of guests at any point during today's discussion. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over now to our moderator, Jen Kern, to get started.
Great. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jen Kern. I'm the CMO here at Q, and so excited to kick off our webinar here with QSR Magazine. We are going to be really diving into what were the results from our 5th annual State of Digital survey and report that we conducted this year. This is not about just digital, though, and State of Digital. What we want to do now is really decode these trends. How are they playing out for specific brands this year, and what are some other trends that might be surfacing as we go through the year? So I could not be more excited to welcome our guests. We have 2 fast casual brands and 1 quick service brand represented today. Very seasoned, tenured C-level folks here on the meeting with us. So really excited. Let's go ahead and kick off. I'm going to ask them each to do a quick 1-minute bio and background. We'll start with you, Heather.
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here today. Thanks for the invitation, Jen, and great to be in the company of David and Doc as well. I'm Heather Neary. I'm with Taco John's, the president and CEO. I've been here about 3 months, but have spent the bulk of my career in QSR and the restaurant space on both the marketing and the operations side. So I'm excited to be here. Taco John's has 370 units, mostly in the Midwest, and we're looking forward to sharing some things that we've learned here today in this webinar.
Fantastic. Doc, welcome.
Thanks, everyone. Great to be here. I'm Doc, CEO and president of CupBop. We're a Korean barbecue in a cup fast casual brand that currently has about 60 locations here in the U.S., around the Midwest. And then we actually have a relatively large presence in Indonesia with about 200 stores. I've been here for about just over 4.5 years now. Previous to this life, I was in finance, started my career at Goldman Sachs as an investment research analyst for a few years. And then I was an investor at a hedge fund named Citadel for about 4.5 years, running an industrials portfolio. So very excited to be here.
Wonderful. We're so excited to have you. Hi, Dave.
Hi, good afternoon, Jen. Good afternoon, everybody. Really excited to be here today and looking forward to the discussion. Thanks for the invite. Shake Shack's a fast casual restaurant company. As of the end of last quarter, we had about 525 restaurants globally. As you heard, I'm the Chief Information Officer and have a background leading IT organizations in lots of different industries, from travel, retail, and CPG. So looking forward to the discussion.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all again for attending. And I love that we have such a nice, diverse mixture here. We have a 60 brand, started as a food truck concept, was founded on Shark Tank, CupBop here. Really modern, ultra hip, go-getter brand. I mean, Doc, I know you have a YouTube series and TikTok. You're really, really active on TikTok. So a really fun, modern brand. And then we've got Taco John's, which is invented the original Taco Tuesday. So cool. And is around, as Heather said, about 300-ish locations. And I know Heather was a CMO and she's had head of operation roles. And so we've also got like almost all of the different functional roles represented. And then as you just heard, I mean, everyone knows Shake Shack now, right? Like Shake Shack is been on the rise. The burgers are amazing. The fries are amazing. And David, so excited to see all the different things you're doing on the technology side there. So let's go ahead and kick off. One of the first things I wanted to talk about is just more like the place setting, is how is the mix panning out across digital and in-store sales? And one of the questions that we always ask in State of Digital is what the digital sales are, how digital sales are performing at each brand, what percentage they are, or what percentage growth has been seen in previous years. And this question we asked again this year, which was what is your digital sales volume? And we asked QSRs and fast casuals. You have to have over 20 locations to participate, by the way, in this survey. And you can see the results here that fast casual has a much higher digital volume than QSR. Not terribly surprising whatsoever. The number has creeped up slowly in the past couple of years since post-pandemic. Pandemic, obviously, there was a huge spike. So now we're seeing almost half of fast casual brands reporting between 26 to 50% of their sales in the digital ecosystem. So it could be mobile app, online ordering, third-party delivery, anything that's happening outside the store. And then in quick service, it's a bit lower. The highest majority of people were in the 11 to 25% digital sales category. There were about 43% of QSRs reported there. And that was, again, an uptick. And what we've seen across the past 5 years, and we've been doing this survey pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and now post-pandemic, is obviously it was creeping along and it shot up in the pandemic. And now what we're seeing is it's kind of leveling off. It's still continuing to grow, but at slightly slower rates. And so my question for our esteemed panelists here is, where is your brand landing in this mix? And if you can color your commentary around a lot of the hype that we've heard in the media around brands looking to get 100% digital in the next 5 years. So let's go ahead and start again with you, Heather. What are you seeing in terms of the mix at Taco John's, and where do you see the opportunities at your brand?
Yeah, so right now we are between 7 and 10%. That does not include kiosks. That's strictly third-party delivery and our first-party app. Which does not include the kiosk, which is a separate metric in the way we organize it. In terms of the potential to get to 100%, I think about something I heard at the National Restaurant Association meeting just a couple of weeks ago, and they talked about high touch and high tech. I think the combination of those two is important. I do think we'll continue to increase this number over time, and I think it's important for us to be where our customers want us to be. So I think potentially a younger demographic is more comfortable using technology, more comfortable placing their orders on the app, and a different demographic might be more comfortable not necessarily using the app and using the app to place their orders. I think about the airlines. I mean, how many years ago was it that we would all wait in line to check our baggage or check in, and the airlines forced you to use the kiosks, and they had somebody out there helping you if you needed it. But at the end of the day, the airlines were really focusing on getting you comfortable with using that technology. And now it's just second nature for all of us to go right to those kiosks, key in our confirmation code, and get either our boarding tickets or our baggage tickets for our bags and luggage. And I think that's the direction that we're moving. There will always be a need for that personal touch. And I think it's important that we're meeting our guests where they're at. And that's kind of where that high touch, high tech comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely. Doc?
Yeah, I'm with Heather. So currently for us, we're just over a third of our sales is from digital, the vast majority from third-party delivery. And yeah, I think we don't want to be 100% digital anytime soon, because that means we'd be missing out on a huge customer segment, right? And it is true that there's definitely the secular trend towards, digitalization and all of that. But in-store experience is also very important, right? And we want guests to come in, experience our brand, experience the service as well. And so, we'll be where the guests are. But yeah, I think there's a balance for every brand. And I don't think there's one right answer. I don't think just having a lot of digital is necessarily a good thing. So yeah, that's kind of my takeaway. And our opportunities are really kind of on on the loyalty program side going forward that we can touch on later. So
yeah, absolutely. Up to you, Dave.
Okay, well, we are in the low to mid 30s in terms of digital sales, so very much in that sort of large cohort that the slide shows. I think we're the same. I feel the same as you've heard. We let guests choose what works for them. App and web are very important to us, as are the in-restaurant channels, as is delivery, which are in that digital sales number. And really, it's about letting the guests choose whatever works for them. I think for us, the key focus is making sure it's a consistent guest experience, or as consistent as we can make it in each channel, and then letting the guests choose what works for them. I'm sure we're going to see it vary over time, but really, it's about delivering the best possible experience to meet that guest need.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One thing I would love to know, and I bet our audience is curious about, is how do you track and monitor your digital versus in-store sales in a way that helps you improve sales opportunities as well as improve business operating opportunities and efficiencies?
Yeah, I think I can go here. So for us, we've built now a series of dashboards that allows us to look at the data and slice and dice it in lots of different ways. So we look at it by channel, and so we can look at it over different periods of time, regions, formats, lots of different ways, really so we understand the different patterns and can drive improvement from there. But those dashboards are really making those available and really making them easy to consume has been a key thing.
Right, right.
And I think for us at Taco John's, it's really about understanding the ebbs and flows of that database, of that information. We do notice that if the weather is not as great, we need to be expecting a higher level of third-party delivery and app usages, and just understanding that those app usages tend to lean towards much more customized and modified orders, which means that it's more important than ever for us to make sure that our folks working those lines are really being accurate in terms of preparing the order properly based on the customizations that the guests have put into place. And so for us, it's a matter of planning. And it's a matter of making sure that our kitchen display systems are reading properly, and that it's easy for the crew members as well to understand that. And then, of course, just the profitability from a third-party app versus a first-party app versus an in-store order, and understanding the balance between those three. They all play a critical role in our future, but understanding what the profitability is of each one of those and making sure that we're accommodating appropriately.
Yeah, speaking of the profitability of each channel, I pulled up a slide really quickly here. It looks at the top sales drivers, which was one of the questions we also asked for digital. And unsurprisingly, third-party delivery won by a landslide. 56% said, that's the number one driver for our digital sales. And that was closely followed by loyalty, in-app, ostensibly purchases. Discounting promotions was up there too, though, surprisingly. I mean, discounting and promotions on top of a third party would be not very profitable, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think it depends on,
yeah.
I think, obviously the rate, right? The commission rate of these big kind of third-party delivery companies. And I think the questions around kind of the sustainability of that, I think is a whole different topic that we can talk about for hours. But I think there are, programs that you can kind of, pick and choose and try to play to your advantage, right? If you're focused on kind of trying to get first-time customer to your brand, right? Then you just essentially view it as a customer acquisition cost, and you can be a little bit more aggressive around that, and vice versa. But yeah, it definitely on the profitability side, it's very hard to balance that given, with the inflationary environment. And I think if we're on the DoorDash app as a user, I think we all know, whether it be Uber Eats or Grubhub, whatever, if you're on it, the costs add up very, very quickly. And so we have to be very, very mindful of that, 100%.
I think it's also dovetailing between, the loyalty. I think your loyalty program and how your loyalty program works with your first party app can create a really compelling strategy for your guests to help them understand the value of ordering directly through you versus ordering through a third party app like DoorDash or Uber Eats or Grubhub. Those are all important for us in our business model. But I think understanding the customer's patterns and offering them compelling offers through that first party app to drive that repeat sale is important. And just, I'll echo what Doc said as well. When you're thinking about the strategy of customer acquisition, that's a different conversation than once the customer is already part of your ordering cycle. Thinking too about the DoorDash app is that you're looking at, there might be a time when you and your family don't know what you want to eat for dinner. So you have to be there, you have to play there. Sometimes that means that you do some marketing work around that to make sure that your brand is showing up in a way that's not, scrolling down for 10 minutes till you get to your particular brand, because you're in the consideration set at that point. And that's a different strategy as well when you're thinking about DoorDash versus, I already know I want Taco John's, so I'm going to go directly to the Taco John's app and place my order there.
Yeah. And what are you seeing at Shake Shack, David, in terms of top digital sales drivers?
Well, I think we're in a moment where the consumer is for sure looking for value. And I think that's kind of reflected in the promotion piece. You see consumers feeling pinched, and that value proposition and the value is really important. If they're cutting back how many times they are going out to eat, then making sure you've got a great experience and great value becomes really important. Beyond that, I think kind of agree with what's been said.
Okay. We have an interesting question here before we move off of digital sales here for a second. Let me see if I can find it. Sanjeev asked, how important is it for you to share ingredients, allergen information, and nutrition information with your guests while they are ordering using digital order channels?
It's a great question. I saw that come through. I think for us, we do have all of our information available on our website under our menu, and it's much like when you'd be in the restaurant placing an order. We would hope that our guests go back and forth between the website and the app to make those decisions if there are particular concerns or sensitivities around allergens and or ingredients. I don't think, and I should know this, but I don't think we have that incorporated into our third-party apps. But I do think it's important to make sure there's that transparency for consumers to understand what they're eating, how they're eating it, et cetera. And it is important to our guests. We know that.
Yeah, I'd love to see ingredient information and allergy information for sure. I'm going to jump quick to another question here. If you all don't have any other comments on that one. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of questions. Okay. For an older age-wise demographic, how do you try to meet them in this newer digital age in terms of these trends? So what are you doing to cater to, the boomer generation is essentially what I think we're talking about here.
I think for us, and we touched on it a bit earlier, it's about giving the guest choice of how they like to order their shack. So whether that's one of the digital tools or still in the restaurant with an associate, all are available, and the guest can pick which is the most the best for them.
Yeah, I think inclusivity is important. So no matter how our guests want to order from us, we need to be there for them, whether they're a boomer or a Gen Z or a Gen Alpha. I think it's important that we're accommodating those different needs. I have noticed just in my time in restaurants, I love to watch consumers and how they interact with the brand as they come into the restaurant. And I have noticed that the younger demographic definitely gravitates straight to the kiosk, no questions asked. They're very quick to do that. And just in talking with them, you do find there's a little bit of a psychological impact that really hasn't been measured yet, to my knowledge, where guests feel less guilty and or less embarrassed about what they order when they can do it anonymously through either an app or the digital kiosk. And as a result, they'll often maybe add on an extra cheese sauce or add on a guacamole that they wouldn't have necessarily ordered from a human being. So that definitely helps our net sale per transaction. And it also lets the guests enjoy what they really want to enjoy versus feeling that psychological pressure to not order something that might not be perceived positively from a crew member.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're going to be right-sizing this digital, experience versus in-store experience for quite some time. I mean, you've heard all the talk, and I've certainly am a guest at Starbucks, and you come in the store anymore, and you're not the number one most important person anymore, right? I mean, it takes a while sometimes to get your drink, and the line is crazy with just you just see all the drinks sitting there. And I certainly don't mean to pick on Starbucks, but it's going to be a balancing act for all of us, I believe. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. We do have a lot more questions coming in. So if any of the speakers see a question you want to address, please just go ahead. Kiosks. So we've already touched on kiosks. One of the questions we asked in the survey was, what is your top investment priority from a new ordering or an ordering standpoint? And kiosks, 44% of the respondents said they are looking to either test or add a kiosk in 2024. So I'd love to know from each of you how your brand is looking at this, if you've already adopted kiosks or thinking about adopting kiosks, and if you already have, how's it going? And this time I want to start with Dave, because Dave, I know that your brand has been quoted in several publications around your kiosk rollout. So why don't we go ahead and start with you this time?
Sure, Jen. So we started our kiosk journey back in 2017 in Astor Place in New York, and it's been a great learning journey since then. We built our own kiosk software. It's an iOS app that runs on an iPad. And we started off learning about how guests responded to the kiosk and what they felt about the experience. We used it in some restaurants. And last year basically took the leap to retrofit it in just about every Shake Shack. Since then, it's become our largest single order channel, and it's our most profitable. So in terms of the check size, the order size, it's about high teens % versus the traditional Shack ordering channel. So it performs considerably better. I think some of the things I love about it, our guests love it. Again, as we said a few moments ago, it's an option. You can still order with an associate or through our app and web experiences. But this is a channel that our guests tell us they really, really like. I think a few things that I've seen in our restaurants that I love. I think the first one is watching families use the kiosk. So it's fascinating watching a family, because generally each member of the family will want to put in their own order. And then a lucky person pays for it at the end. But generally, everybody wants to customize their order. They want to put in exactly what they want. And the kiosk gives you the power to do that. I think the larger screen real estate also just makes menu exploration easier. And allows you to really pick the order that you want and take your time. I think I made the point. It's sometimes I think people can feel pressured when they're standing talking to an associate. Oh, I've got to make a decision. I really need to put my order in now. There's people behind me. The kiosk lets people relax and just explore the menu and choose the order that's right for them. So we're huge fans of the kiosk. We continue to invest in making the experience even better, taking our guest feedback and what we learn from the data. And we're continuing to adjust how we merchandise it and how we set it up so that it's even easier for guests to use and order how they like. So yes, huge fans of the kiosk. It's now pretty much in every restaurant we open, and it's been a big part of our success recently.
So you're definitely setting the bar for the industry, it sounds like. Congratulations. I mean, those are some fantastic numbers. I'm guessing our audience would love to know if you could share some of your learnings, David. Like you said, you started in 2017. What are some of the maybe watch outs with kiosks, or something that you would recommend if you're looking to roll out kiosks?
Yeah, I think there was a hypothesis to begin with that it was a big labor saver, and it's not. It allows you to optimize how you assign people in your restaurant, but it's not a big labor saver in its own right. I think also, so it's been one learning. I think it allows our team to be deployed most effectively. And also it allows guest time to, as I said, explore the menu. So I think how we merchandise the menu, how it's presented on the kiosk is really important. So we've learned how to make sure that it's easy to navigate, that it is easy to find things, that you can find new items that you may not have known, make it easy to find LTOs, for example, as well as regular menu items. So I think the big learnings have been around how to optimize the experience and just what it does to the dynamics in the restaurant, because you can have, I think we've learned the right number of kiosks as well. That's been a big question, is what's the right number of kiosks to allow guests to be ordering at the same time and to optimize the flow operationally within the restaurant. So we've tweaked and tuned that as we've gone along, and also where to place them. I think just as Heather was talking about in the airport example earlier, you want to make sure or for us, placing them in the right place in the restaurant so that they're easy to see, easy to engage with is really important. If the kiosks are off to the side and they're a bit hidden when the guest walks in the door, then they're not going to see them and probably not know they're there or want to use them. So placing them in a way that allows the guest to easily find them, but know that there's also other ordering options has been another one. So physical design of the restaurant has been a learning over time.
Great tips. I'll leave it up to
I'm
Heather.
taking
Dok Kwon to
myself,
jump in.
Jada. Those are great tips. Thank you.
I know. Really good. Really good.
I think I'll echo a lot of the things he said too. I think a lot of the ease of ordering, the giving the chance for the consumer to browse through the menu and see the different ways you can change what you're ordering, which I mentioned before, is that customization piece is awesome for the guests. We just really need to make sure that we're nailing that on the crew side to make sure that we're delivering that accuracy piece. But just giving the guests the chance to browse the menu, to go, oh, I always order my same thing, but now I'm browsing and I realize this looks really good. The Taco Bravo looks amazing. I haven't tried that before. I'm going to go ahead and add that. And, oh, I can add guacamole to that, or I can add some nacho cheese on the side. And I think just making it really easy for guests to understand the different things that exist on your menu and how they can customize things to make it their own, to personalize that, which is also an important part of the experience.
Yeah, for us as well, we have kiosks at just about every store. Rolled it out with Q a couple of years back, and it's been interesting. You know, like Dave said, it's definitely an optionality that our guests have, and it can drive higher kind of average check. What we have seen is kind of busier, kind of high lunch rush, metropolitan downtown areas. We've seen the usage significantly higher for us, at least. And one thing that we've been wrestling on the topic of kiosks personally as a brand has been, you know, our brand prides ourselves very heavily on just kind of the energy, the fun culture that we have inside the stores, and etc. And how do we bridge that with both having a kiosk, but making sure that there is some in-person experience along with that. And that's something that we continue to think about to make sure that we can really optimize.
Yes, so important. Absolutely. And your brand has great energy. I pick it up just looking at your website. So I think having that in store and translating that is fantastic. Makes all the difference, as we talked about earlier, the guest experience. There is an interesting question here. Have you seen a decrease in customer tips through kiosk orders?
We don't accept tips, so that's not a question that I can answer.
Yes, I would say the average is lower.
Okay.
I don't know if I've seen a big trend in decrease, but yes, the average is lower, for sure.
Yeah, I don't have the data to hand, so I'm afraid I couldn't answer.
Okay, that's okay, Dave, because we have another question for you. When you say kiosks are the most profitable, did you mean higher check size or overall profitability, for example, labor savings from the self-serve model?
There's certainly higher check size. So as I mentioned, high teens percentage average check increase versus traditional in-shack ordering. So that's primarily where it comes from. In terms of labor time savings, no, we don't see huge labor savings. Generally, we want to make sure that there's a kiosk champ who can go and support questions if guests have them. But it does allow the opportunity to optimize how labor is deployed across the restaurant. So it's a factor, but not a huge one.
Mm-hmm. I always like the honey grow model. They started with kiosks only, but they always have an ambassador, a store ambassador, which is someone that's like floating through the store. I don't know if that's exactly what they call them, but helping you, like you were talking about, Dave, with the kiosk, helping you kind of navigate through it, answer any questions you have about the menu. Okay, here's another great question. In terms of personalized experience, do you adjust the kiosk user journey for different user segments?
So I would say at the moment, no. I think it's an opportunity. I think personalization is one of the things that we can talk about a bit later as we talk about data. I think it comes in there, but I think there is a great opportunity as we look at how platforms, particularly unified commerce platforms, are coming along, and how data is becoming so central to experience that they can get more personalized more easily. Today, it's getting very complex to do that. Not impossible. It's easier to do at the group level at the moment rather than one-to-one. So I think segment-based is realistic, and there's a little bit of that in there. But one-to-one is what AI and data will enable, I think, over time.
Perfectly said. And the last question I'll field here on kiosk: what is the biggest challenge, this is for any of the three of you, you've experienced in implementing kiosks?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think for us, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, I think just what I mentioned before, I think is just balancing the human interaction and the guest experience with the technology for us.
Yeah, and I'll agree. It's that high tech, high touch. And then I also just think we have been fortunate, we're a 55-year-old brand, and we're really well known and well loved in the communities where we operate. And change management is always going to be a challenge. So folks that have come into our restaurants for years and years and years, and we're so grateful to them for bringing their families and their families' into our restaurants to enjoy tacos with us. Introducing a new level of engagement with them is always a challenge because they're not used to that, and that's just a change management conversation. I think I mentioned earlier that we do see a younger demographic come in and go right to the kiosk. Like they almost want to avoid having to talk to a person, and they want to make sure that they're able to create their own custom experience with our brand, which we love being able to do for them. But just that change management with the crew members and with our loyal guests that have been coming to visit us for so many years.
Yeah, I'd agree with what's been said. I'd probably add as well that making sure the kiosk is easy for our team members to support, and that they don't have to spend time supporting it and troubleshooting it, that it basically works and they have tools to manage it. That's probably another piece that I think is important. Otherwise, you end up with broken kiosks and the team doesn't know what to do with them, and then the experience degrades. So I think that's an important point too.
Yeah, definitely. Great call out. Okay, well, talking about the customer experience, the team member experience, the guest experience, let's talk about loyalty for a second. So one of our big findings this year was that loyalty is broken and really needs a revolution, if you will, a reinvention strategy. And so one of our big bets is that Loyalty 3.0 will emerge. Loyalty was also, by the way, the #1 investment channel overall. Where are you putting your money in 2024? Loyalty came up first by both fast casual and QSR. And so we then dug in and said, well, what kind of new loyalty strategies, what upgrades are you looking to make? Because it's not necessarily the tech, right? It could be lots of things. And what came up #1 is what this category that I really hadn't heard of, experience engagement, which is kind of like creating this whole, we're talking about it now, like how do you make your brand an experience that's absolutely unforgettable, right? That no matter what, they're going to keep coming back because you guys just nailed it. Frictionless sign up was big, guest payment variety, redemption innovation, technology, upgrading the loyalty provider, appless loyalty. So there's a lot of different strategies that brands are pursuing. What I'd really like to hear from each of you, and I'm sure our audience would love to hear, is what is your loyalty upgrade strategy for 2024 and beyond?
I think for us, we're constantly looking for ways to enhance it. I think any of these things are on our radar. We just did push out a new update to our app, about a month ago. And the whole idea is to keep it simple. Guests want to have an opportunity to engage with your brand. They want to make it easy. We shouldn't have 77 layers of figuring things out to help them get to where they need to be. We just want to make it a really seamless experience for them. I think that's one of the things here. A frictionless sign up and or an ongoing experience with them that's just really easy for them to use. It should be a one-stop shop for loyalty, for storing payments, et cetera, and being able to do those things seamlessly through the POS is important.
Well, I know Doc is doing something super innovative, so I'm excited for him to chime in here.
Yeah, so it's actually great to kind of see that survey that you guys did, because we've been, over the last, honestly, almost, year plus, we've been looking for, a loyalty provider that really jives with us. And the conversation was very similar. I would talk to a lot of, my colleagues in the industry and said, hey, what loyalty are you using? What do you like about it? What do you not? And kind of the universal answer that I got was, we don't like it. And so, when we're trying to choose a provider and we heard that, we thought, okay, switching costs are always very high once you sign up with the software provider, especially something like loyalty, and loyalty is important enough of a, if not probably the most important as far as, really being able to own your guest experience digitally. So we really decided to kind of venture on our own, said, let's build our own. We'll just do that, even though, we're a much smaller brand, obviously, in Taco John and Shake Shack. But we started on that journey last year with Q. And that was a huge, actually, reason we decided to go with Q, because they were accommodating with our ambitions to build our own loyalty program. And we've been on it, and we're very close. And so fingers crossed, it should be out within the next couple months or so. At least our beta should be out. We're very close, and so very excited to see how it's going to turn out, all the learnings through it. And we've gone through a lot of learnings trying to build it together with Q. Q's gone through a lot of learnings. We've gone through a lot of learnings, but based on this slide, it's exactly right. I think the reason was, and for us, we have such a distinct kind of color on the brand that we really wanted to own every aspect of the engagement. And, as with almost any software, you sign up with the provider and there's a pretty generic template. And not that that's bad, and it's designed in a way that works for, most of the brands, but, we're very particular about, no, we want this here, we want this here, we want this to pop here, this, and we really wanted to own that. And so how it's going to turn out is TBD. I will keep all of you guys posted, and we'll go through all the trials and let everybody know how it goes.
It's exciting. Well, we thank you for trusting us, and just a note that CupBop is using our loyalty API to build it, and we're thrilled about it as well. How about you, David? What's happening with loyalty over at Shake Shack?
So we don't have a formal loyalty program, but I'll give you an industry perspective, and I actually think the slide tells a story. The direction is definitely towards more personalized experiences where you're able to easily recognize your guest and offer them that personalized experience no matter what channel they're coming through. And I think the tech is still catching up with that ambition that now many have. And it's going to take a little time, but it will get there. But I think that's where it's about delivering the right message to every guest at the right time. And that's what I see evolving. So it could be whether that message is a promotional offer, a challenge, or maybe a recovery message in the event of a service issue on a prior visit. It's all that very, very specific one-on-one personalization. And as I say, the tech is catching up, and I think this is going to be a thing over the next couple of years now as programs start evolving.
Absolutely. And I always love, when it comes to experience engagement, I always love a little freebie or some swag. I've seen a lot of brands now coming out with their own swag shops, right? Where you can get t-shirts, or they're giving away t-shirts. We also have heard about like focus group, testing hidden menu items, inviting some of your most loyal and fandom type guests in to taste new menu items, like making guest part of the overall experience. Like, I feel like the sky's the limit, right? There's so much creativity to be had there that I think is a bit untapped. And so I'm excited to see how all your brands are going to continue to do that. I'm going to move on from loyalty now and talk about AI, maybe the biggest buzzword of the year, if not data. But obviously very closely correlated, AI and data. And we saw all the news that came out, you know, poor Wendy's, dynamic pricing, or what we'd call price optimization. Maybe put a positive spin on it. But AI is obviously something that's here to stay. It's not going away. We know it's here to stay. However, how can restaurants both harness and adopt AI is a whole nother question. And one of the things we had came out with, and we kind of made it a call out to tech companies. Tech companies, we need to do better about not just educating restaurants on how AI could work for them, but implementing it into our own platforms. So I'd love to hear from each of you and how you're viewing AI today, next year, things that you're starting to think about or do within your brands that relate to AI. Why don't we start with you, Doc?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's obviously a huge buzzword. And I think the term gets thrown around a lot, but I personally believe that the actual kind of impact that AI has to the general public, it's still very, very much underappreciated. And so I think we will see a lot coming through to this sector, especially because the restaurant sector is a sector that doesn't usually move very fast with technology. But now I think the biggest thing that will come up really is with kind of the advent of AI, it will certainly kind of lower the playing field for everybody. Costs will come down. I think a lot of softwares that are kind of one-trick pony softwares, you know, they're going to be commoditized. Costs overall will come down, but also that would also mean because it is going to be much more widely available, everybody will essentially have to participate. And if you don't, you're going to be significantly behind is kind of how I view it. I think there are a lot of places where it can be used. I'm looking at the list right now: analytics, voice ordering, dynamic pricing. I think there's actually a huge opportunity potentially in training as well. And that's where I'm actually keeping a pretty close eye is at the end of the day, how do we get consistent training through AI that could kind of look at all the data on a daily basis and essentially have that, essentially your personal kind of chief of staff always there inside a restaurant, right? And I think that's inevitable. And so that's something I'm keeping a close eye on. But yeah, it shouldn't be underappreciated. I think there will be pretty significant changes, and it'll really raise the overall playing field for everybody.
Agree. Well said. Heather, David, thoughts on AI?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo a lot of the things Doc said. I think AI means a lot of different things to a lot of different people right now, and it is a buzzword. It's like saying, do we have technology in our restaurants? Well, sure, technology, there's lots of different things that are related to technology in the restaurants, and they're not all AI driven. For us, we are testing some drive-through ordering, and we do have one store fully up and running completely on AI, and it's gone really smoothly for us. That's a partnership with Q and with Presto, and it's gone pretty smoothly. Actually, I was delightfully surprised. I thought it was going to be a lot more of a headache than it actually was. And we have it in queue to go into a couple other lined up to go into a couple of other restaurants in the coming weeks. We do think that's an opportunity for us to, kind of allow the team to focus on creating a great order and to creating the great product and allowing the AI voice to help us with the ordering platform.
Wonderful.
So for me, I think it's important to remember as well, AI technology in and of itself has been out for a while. It's been around for a while. Most of us became familiar with it probably when our Netflix recommendations and Amazon buying experiences, all those kinds of things. I think it's really the Gen AI, the next generation of AI, Gen AI coming to the fore and as part of our everyday discussions that have kind of shone a light back on AI. I think the way I think about it is this: in the short to medium term, most of the AI we consume is going to come through the package applications that we consume. And what used to be the domain of big tech, and they were the first to deploy AI, now is making its way into all of the restaurant applications that we use. And it's gradually coming in. It's taking a little bit of time, but there's so many use cases, and it's great to see whether it's everything from security cameras to how workforce planning is done to how inventory management is done. AI is working its way into those tools in lots of different ways to make them better. So I think that's a big opportunity. And maybe an example is, whereas before when you were looking at scheduling models or workforce models, generally there was one that applied kind of everywhere and it was kind of fit to them. Now it's easier to say, okay, what are the dynamics specifically of this restaurant, and how do we schedule that team in a way that makes sense for this restaurant and the specific attributes it has, whether it be format or menu, location, other things going on. So I think AI has opened that opportunity up. But what it really requires to make it work is obviously great data. And sometimes it's still a little bit hard to move between restaurant systems. It's getting easier. I think that's something I see evolving quite a lot. And once all the data is available, it becomes easier to apply these models over the top. So over the next couple of years, I have no doubt it's going to continue increasing. We're going to see increased use of AI in the applications that we all use day to day for our businesses. And it's going to become, I think, I agree with what was said before, what Dok said, which is it's the price of it's coming down to the point where it will be easier to deploy it in your own environment if you want to do so. I think, like all things with restaurants, some restaurant companies prefer solution providers to come and do it for them. Others want all the data and they'll do it themselves. And both of those are going to be much more practical over the next couple of years.
Absolutely. And I think something that you had said earlier, not in this conversation, but another one, David, was that you have to be careful not to think of AI as a separate tool, as something separate from all the other stuff you're doing. And sometimes you won't even know AI is there as a user, maybe even as an employee, right? But that AI will become part of the fabric of a lot of the technologies that we use over time.
Absolutely. And I think of this journey from reporting to visualizations like dashboards, through to business intelligence, and then machine learning, and then AI, and then ultimately Gen AI. And they're all in different places in different applications, but I think that's very much the journey everybody's on. And you actually need to go in sequence, trying to jump to something that's Gen AI before reporting and all this sort of business intelligence foundation is in place generally doesn't work well. It certainly doesn't at the moment. So I think being able to use those, and yeah, sometimes we won't even know that the AI is there. And that's the way technology is supposed to enable. And that's really the best way. I think, although everyone likes to hear, oh, this has got AI in it, fundamentally, as long as it's solving a business need and doing it in a way that's better than without it, that's where we need to be. And that's what we're starting to see more of.
Yeah, and I think you teed us up here for the final segment really well, and that's all about post-pandemic tech favors platforms. And what do we mean by platforms? At Q, we call ourselves a unified commerce platform. We were one of the first to pioneer that. And what we mean by it is it's a data-driven foundational platform that creates the menu at the source of origin and then seamlessly connects through an API layer to all the ordering channels. The end goal is unifying what we've been talking about, the guest experience, unifying menu management, unifying your tech stack. There's unification that's going to happen across the board. But for folks who may not be using a unified commerce platform, there's still a big urgency to get to the original source of the data. Not only to own the data, which surprisingly a lot of restaurants, don't own their own data until recently, or some are now just trying to get to that point. But owning the data and then unifying it in a way, you've all probably heard about, data lakes and CDPs, and there's all sorts of strategies out there. But one of the questions did ask about platforms, and 65% of brands said they plan to, or they already have made a shift to a platform, some sort of unified platform approach. And there's different types of platforms, and that's for another webinar talking about that. But then 62% are still saying order accuracy is a problem. And that was something that we flagged in last year's report, order accuracy, because of the lack of the access to real-time data and some of the fragmentation between the different ordering systems. We're seeing a kind of this breakdown with order accuracy, which, as we all know, translates to a poorer guest experience. So if each of you can touch on for a second how you're looking at the data, how you're looking at unifying the data so that you can make real-time, like, business decisions that will actually impact revenue or else improve operating costs. Would love to hear from each of you on your thoughts and approaches here. Should I pick on someone? Let's pick on Heather.
We are working towards this. It's the holy grail for us to be here with, like, all of our information under one umbrella on one platform. That gives us the opportunity to analyze the data, to make sure that we're segmenting the data in a most efficient way, and then also make sure that we're optimizing our media spending and all the subsequent things down the road as it relates to these things. And then it also provides data back to us. It closes that loop to show us the most efficient ways for us to target our guests in a meaningful way. We do know that other brands are doing that. We're a little behind the curve here, but this is something that we are working on, and we're meeting with some vendors right now to work through this problem/opportunity for improvement.
Thank you, Heather.
I'll offer a couple of thoughts here. So I think one, we've been on a journey to bring all of the data from various systems together. So whether that's sales, customer, inventory, workforce management, and to look at them, because although there's a lot of benefit in looking at each of them individually, there's enormous power when they're brought together and being able to glean insights from looking across them. So I think that's one thing on data, and we'll continue on that journey. There's certainly more we can add, and we'll continue to do that. And then we'll learn how to mine it and be able to really drive the insights. It's the thing from data to insights to action, and to continue driving those actions out of it. And you don't always go in knowing exactly what you're going to learn, but the ability to just start testing hypotheses and asking different questions of the data and being able to get those answers out is incredibly powerful, whether it's about improving guest experience and understanding how to do that, or improving operational efficiency. Most restaurants are always trying to do both, which is incredibly hard to do. But that's where the power of the data can really unlock those opportunities. I think the other thing on just the order accuracy point you mentioned is today's, this is the difference for me between omnichannel and unified commerce. In an omnichannel world, you can tie all the bits of data together. It's not impossible, it's hard work. And it gets more and more complicated. And I think what we're seeing, that this is the real benefit of unified commerce platforms, is it reduces complexity, because rather than the restaurant application ecosystems become quite fragmented over time. Lots of restaurants have got a number of different point solutions that are all sort of connected together in various ways. But unified commerce makes it much easier to connect those pieces and have actually less pieces to connect. So that it becomes easier to manage that, but also to do new things. Because I think that's the other thing of the complexity, is the more complex the environment is, the longer it takes to do something. So there's just tremendous power from the move towards a more platform-centric world, and away from the sort of fragmented world that was driven by necessity during the pandemic, it has to be said.
Yeah, I am 100% with both Dave and Heather. I think a lot of times, our focus is kind of get it under one platform, one house, convenience, having the power to really have everything in one place. That's obviously very powerful and big. But I think often, what we also tend to underappreciate is the actual technical problems that we face when you're trying to connect a lot of different things through another third-party vendor that's an integrator that does this, that, and I think we already have software fatigue. I think in a lot of the industries, and if we don't kind of optimize how all of these data sources are connected, it can become ineffective very quickly, and that's something that we have experienced before in our brand as well. And so I think a huge benefit that we don't talk about as much is really kind of that solving, and minimizing the technical issues and errors. So I think it's hugely important.
It's probably also worth noting that there are so many different parts to a restaurant. I don't envisage we'll ever get to one platform, but if 12 pieces can become 2 or 3 core platforms with a couple of pieces around them, that's going to be much more manageable for everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we always talk about, and you said it, David, the technology being the enabler, not the inhibitor, right? And making it almost invisible, right? We are supposed to be enabling. It is a very complex ecosystem. We have a few minutes and we have a bunch of questions. So I'm going to jump to one here. Some restaurant operators saw traffic declines in Q1, including McDonald's. Given that consumers, low-income consumers in particular, are feeling pressure, how do you forecast the outlook of the entire U.S. this is a big question, QSR fast casual sector in 2024? How do you see the rest of 2024 playing out?
I mean, I think it's going to be tough for us. I think, the value conversation is an important one, and value means different things to different consumers. I think there is a lot of pressure on us as QSR and fast casual operators to offer the best products possible with the best experience possible while battling increased costs of labor and increased cost of goods. And so for us, it's a matter of continuing to communicate our value menu, which we've had for quite a while. We do have a great value menu that offers great value for people that are looking for a little bit of a bargain, and making sure that we're delivering that to our guests in a way that continues to honor the heritage and legacy of Taco John's. I think, I'll stop there. I could go off on my own little soapbox, but I won't.
Yeah, I would echo that. Yeah, it's definitely a very tough kind of backdrop overall, and it's an election year. That always brings a lot of things, narratives with it. But I do, and I think we saw in the earlier slide that kind of promotions and discount was a big driver of what are getting what restaurants are focusing on right now. And I do agree, kind of that focus on value is going to be extremely important. And brand by brand, we're going to have to go out and really kind of, take it into our own hands, whether it be through, new menus, creative value offerings. Because I think the environment is hard enough that if you're just sitting there, you're going to get punched really hard multiple times. And so how do we mitigate that? And how do we take it into our own hands and come up with some creative ways to battle that? So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's super hard to predict what's going to happen in the future. There's a lot of uncertainty out there. So I think for us, just delivering the great guest experience and hospitality we're known for, making sure that we're delighting each and every guest that there's the best experience it can be, offering that value that we think our consumers are looking for, and be just really awesome at operations and operational execution. But it's amazing. One of the things I find fascinating about this industry is there's no one thing. You have to be good at all these different levers and all these different things. And at the same time, you have to roll with what goes on as well. You have to be able to react quickly to a very rapidly evolving landscape. So plan is important, but being able to react to what's going on is important too.
That's so true, Dave. Yes. You're 100% right.
It is not for the faint of heart. That is for sure. It takes a lot of grit to make it in the industry. So we know that the three of you embody that, and we appreciate you for coming on and sharing your experience in terms of all of the work you've done, not just at your current brands, but previous brands, and bringing that all to bear on the industry and on our audience today. So a huge round of applause. I'll give a round of applause for all three of you, David, Dok, and Heather, for showing up. Wish you the best at all your respective brands. For all the audience, there is a link to the State of Digital that you can visit. And then there were, I think the LinkedIn information for our guests was also available. Please do, if you're in a state where Taco John's, Shake Shack, or CupBop is available, please do check it out. I've been to all three of them and can vouch for the food and the diversity on the palate of all three. So thank you again, and wish you the best for the remainder of the year.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Doc.
All right, I'll just add a quick final note. Jen and guests, thank you. That was an absolutely fantastic program. We really appreciate you bringing it together today. And thanks to our audience for attending as well, and of course to sponsor Q for making the program possible. As we mentioned, and as many of you have asked, a recording of the program will be linked on QSRmagazine.com as well as emailed to you, or you can also use today's login link to view the recording at any time. Thanks again and have a great day.
I forgot to say, I'm so sorry we didn't get to all the questions. There were a bunch more questions. We snuck in as many as we could, but please do reach out to any of the 4, 5 of us QSR. We can all do our best to get answers to your questions.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you.